That real.
You're gonna want that.
That real. Yo.
You're gonna need
Yo.
it. You're gonna want that.
That real.
You better stop and think about what you're doing. You better stop and think about what you're doing. You better stop.
Hi, I'm April Audane. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm a healthcare finance professional.
My name is PJ Allen, and I live in Chicago, and I teach digital arts to high schoolers and middle schoolers.
Good afternoon. I'm Demetrius Jordan, near the suburb of Chicago, Illinois. I'm a high school educator and college professor. I also do consulting work with on professional business and communication and marketing.
My name is Michelle Ragland. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I work in research and development. I'm a regulatory affairs specialist, and basically I keep your cosmetics and personal care products safe.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Goforth. I'm from Chicago. I'm a real estate agent, a mom, and I also work in the field service operations.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very esteemed group here today for this conversation. These are all my friends, so I'm very excited to have them in the discussion today. They just introduced themselves now. We're going to talk about something that you hear people talk about, but I don't think people talk about with any real depth, and that's this Karen phenomenon. And we just showed some instances before the show started of some popular Karens and some Karens that made the news. But before we kind of delve into it, what I want each of us to do is to give what their understanding. What is a Karen? What does it mean to be a Karen? Because I hear a lot of definitions kind of floating around, and I just think it's best when you have a conversation like this, let's get a working definition or discuss what goes into that definition. So whoever wants to jump in and start.
So actually, Alicia gave me the funniest definition yesterday. We were talking about this, and she said a Karen is, she said you could define a Karen as caring too much about the wrong things. That we use another word, but we're going to keep it clean today, so.
Okay.
I think April hit the nail on the head, but I'll give my definition. I would define Karen as a woman of Caucasian descent, anywhere between the ages of 35 to 55 or even 60 pre-retirement, that feels entitled. Not only does she care too much, but she feels so entitled. And I wrote some notes on this because
very good. I respect it.
Okay, so I won't take long, but she carries a sense of entitlement and demands and expects for others to comply because she's uncomfortable. That is a Karen.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay. I appreciate the thoroughness of your written explanation.
I'll piggyback off of that one because Tiffany really nailed it. It's so white woman who's willfully ignorant in her entitlement.
It's a good one.
That is.
Okay. You sure?
She also thinks she's a victim too.
That's
She's very righteous about what she's being put upon. She's right, and she's obviously very willing to call in white supremacist authority to back her up.
Yeah. And I would also say that Mia Karen is a person who uses her privilege to demand her own way at the expense of others. So it doesn't matter what happens to the next person as long as she gets her way, as long as things are done her way. And you don't just see this, in instances like the bird watcher at the park or people living in certain areas where people think they're not supposed to be there. You also see this, in your home your HOA. If you have a HOA where you live, you have people like coming to you, you know, trying to check you for what you're doing at your house, you know. So you see this everywhere. And I'm sure that you will give examples, but, you know, they don't care what's going to happen to you as long as things are done their way or they get their way.
You know, I think what everyone said for the most part, you know, is all the things I've heard. My basic kind of definition of it is a white woman, and it I guess age is less important, but I guess more often than not, it would be in that 35 to 55 range that was said earlier. But I think the crucial piece is that this woman, in a sense, weaponizes her whiteness to get her way.
Yeah.
So if you look at the example of the Bird Watcher, there you had an example of an African-American man asserting himself to the inconvenience of this Karen, and she was willing to call the police and say that this man was attacking her. Now, I think the consequence could have been they came with their guns drawn and killed this man, or did anything, or beat him to death, or whatever. I mean, it's a shame that we're in kind of that state as it relates to law enforcement, but I mean, that is the reality. That, to me, kind of is the Karen. It's less about the age but it's more about kind of the actions and the intents, kind of what BJ and what all of you really said, you know what I mean? But moving on to kind of the next question, is Karen, is it a racial slur? Like, do you feel that Karen, and I'll pose this at BJ, not to put BJ on the spot.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
BJ's like, okay.
Yeah.
Is the term Karen, is it a racial slur? Would you consider it a racial slur?
Well,
or racially
no.
based
I mean,
insult?
it's kind of the same thing as being anti-racist. Or not anti-racist, reverse racism. You know, there's really no such thing. And like a slur, like a white, you know, calling a Karen, I mean, no, it's not a slur. I would say like it's a nickname, you know, like a description. I mean, a descriptive nickname. No, it's not. No, it's not a slur. You know, you can't when someone is being a racist douche, you know, the name, the benevolent, the name you choose to call them is not a slur, you know? So my opinion.
So to my other panelists, I don't know if any of you have ever called someone a Karen in public forum, or, you know, have any of you ever heard any pushback as it related to the term Karen from someone who maybe might have been called a Karen or would be considered a Karen?
I haven't, but that could be a very intimidating situation, and that may be why I have not received any pushback. I don't, however, just throw the term Karen out. I try to remain respectful, because I do think that it can come off disrespectful. However, I will use it if necessary.
Right.
So no, I haven't. I haven't received pushback personally from the term.
So I've noticed that as the term has been used more, there's been more, I want to say maybe uproar about it, because I think at first everyone was kind of like, oh, that's funny, but appropriate. And now that people are using it, I think more frequently, people are in their feelings about it, because they don't want to have that connotation for themselves with how it's defined as a Karen, because, oh no, that's not what I was doing. Well, yes, it is. That's why they've termed it. But I also do think that people do throw it around loosely. And so therefore it's like not every situation warrants someone being called a Karen. So I do think that we have to be very specific about that when we're utilizing these kinds of terminologies.
Yeah, and I also like, you know, I still get my New York City news on my streaming television service. For whatever reason, it still thinks I'm in New Jersey. So the newscasters in New York, you know, just throw that term around nowadays. Like, it's a common term that's used in media with professionals. And I do see a little pushback, like when I'm on Twitter with people saying, don't call me Karen, or my name is Karen, and I find that offensive. Or, isn't that the same as using the N-word with, oh my goodness? No.
That would be a no,
it's not the same.
Yes, it's not the same.
It's not the same. So, I mean, there is pushback that I see on social media, specifically on Twitter, from people with the use of the term Karen. But as far as my own personal experience, I haven't had to use that term. I haven't had to have any kind of confrontation like that with people, but I have in the past. And as your other guests mentioned, I try to keep it professional. I try to de-escalate situations, but I also stand my ground, and I also stand up for myself if I know I'm in the right. So I've always been taught, don't let people treat you a certain way, don't let people talk to you a certain way, don't let people call you out your name. So if it comes to that, then we're going to have words, and I'm going to be respectful to a point. But at the same time, at this present time, I haven't had to call anyone a Karen. I don't really see the need to do so. But if I was pushed to do it, I might.
I think it's great to take some time to define what a Karen is. And then when you're in that situation, I've unfortunately been in a situation where someone has deserved the title of a Karen, but instead of calling them a Karen, let's talk about what you're doing. Let's talk about the entitlement. Let's talk about the privilege you're asserting. Let's talk about the willful ignorance of your actions and how those can play out against someone else. Then after I've laid out all the actions, I don't have to call you a Karen. Anybody else listening to this story, or even yourself, you're gonna go, I was kind of a Karen. Yes, you were. Yeah, you were that title. I don't have to give you the title. The fact that we can identify it and that we can say what it is, I think is even more powerful, because by definition, by privilege, you don't understand you have it. So sometimes there's a lack of understanding that what you're doing is Karen. You don't understand.
Karen is now a noun and a verb.
That's a verb. We all know what it means. You don't realize you're Karen. You don't realize that fact. I think one of the funniest, the first time I can remember having a conversation about the idea of Karen with white friends was when Chadwick Boseman was on SNL.
Right.
And
right.
he did he did the Black Jeopardy skit. And it was the idea that Karen was bringing potato salad to the cookout.
Oh, with the raisins in it.
Right. He said, he was playing the role as T'Challa. He said, and she probably put something in there that doesn't have to be like raisins. And she doesn't use any seasoning, maybe a little salt, no paprika. Oh, hell no, Karen. Don't bring your potato salad. But even by using that, what it does is that the Karen in that story wanted to do something nice, wanted to do something like bring a potato salad to a picnic, had the idea of giving, but did not have the understanding that, and this is something as minor as potato salad, putting raisins in potato salad and bringing it to a black cookout is going to be a problem. Bringing unseasoned food to a black cookout is going to be a problem. So that's a small thing of not understanding how what you're doing fits in, culturally relevant, what's going. Now you can, of course, it doesn't seem to match maybe the Miss Cooper in New York will calling the police or some of the Karen videos we've seen, but it's the same idea. My way of doing things should be accepted by everybody.
Right.
And how dare you not want my potato salad without seasoning? How dare you watch birds in Central Park? This is for white people. How dare you paint Black Lives Matter in front of the house in this neighborhood when you're not white? And I don't. So all of these examples, all the basis of it is, how dare you infringe upon my whiteness? And why do I have to adjust? Again, someone said, why do I have to be uncomfortable? Why do I have to adjust my whiteness to match now what you're doing? And that's really the essence for me. Everybody who gave a definition said that. And I'm just one, instead of calling people a Karen, tell them what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let them off the hook by giving them a nickname or little bit of that. Tell them what they're doing.
No, you know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead. By all means, go
Karen
ahead.
seems to be a term that is applied more by not the media, but the afterwards by the crowd. You know what I mean? Like people aren't usually like Karen. You know, it seems like more like afterwards when you see the story, you're like, okay, Karen. You know, and it's like it's a shorthand. You know, but I agree with you that you know, you just if someone's doing something, you know, you want to say like again like this is, you know, why are you doing this? This is your, you know, like did you see your privilege in this situation? And if you don't mind me throwing out a term here,
no, go ahead. By all means.
White woman's tears. I did not know about that as a concept for until like a few years ago, and I'm like 50. I'm 50. You know, and I didn't, you know, and I'm a pretty like politically active person, you know, and it took moving to Chicago and like really tuning in to Black culture for me to understand, you know, to learn what it was. You know, and the first time I heard it, I was like, why can't we cry? You know, why can't a woman cry? You know, I'm serious, you know, because you see that, you know, because women often, like in terms of like relationship, you know, like, you know, you have white men and then white women, right? And then that whole white women are often told you're not supposed to show your emotions around white men. So for a white woman, and I think my mom, whose name is Karen, you know, for her, tears are a way of her, like it's a way of showing power, right? In a situation where she sees herself as a subordinate, right? But, you know, obviously, there's a whole historical background to white women weaponizing tears to get Black men killed, usually Black men, right?
Right.
I didn't, you know, so what you were saying about women not even understanding what you know, what Karen's not even understanding what they're doing, like that hits hard, you know, like, you know, and that's why they're so confused when they're called out. They're like, I just was doing what I thought I was supposed to do. I'm calling the police. They're the authority.
Right.
You know, and you don't realize the historical implications. And, well, I mean, you know, I mean, obviously now you should realize what happens when you call police on a Black man, you know, and so that's why it's being, you know, I think it's become more accepted and widespread to talk about it. But yeah, we're dumb. You know, we don't have to know white people don't have to know what Black people go through. That's the whole point, right? Mm-hmm. You know, we're just, you know, getting our money and, you know, whatever, you know.
April,
so anyway.
you had something you wanted to add. Go ahead.
So I have a question. So why do y'all think that this has become more prevalent, let's say in the last few months, as opposed to seeing it less over the years? Because do you think it's just the whole thing with the COVID issue? It just seems like it's just more, and I don't know if it's the access to videos that we have now, but it seems like that even the video access has been something that we've had on our phones for years, but it just seems like it's escalating more and more. You see it more often, and it's gotten to the fact that you're like, are these people emotionally breaking? Is there something going on mental health-wise that we're not addressing as a nation either?
Well, I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Michelle. No, go ahead.
Well, I think there is something going on, you know, with as far as people feeling like they're losing their power, they're losing their privilege. You know, this country is becoming more brown, more melanated. People see that. I mean, we're everywhere. Black people are everywhere. Brown people are everywhere. And actually, the world is predominantly made up of brown and Black people.
It's brown. The world is brown.
Yeah, the world is brown and Black, right? So I think they're starting to see this, and they're starting to feel like they're losing their power, their privilege, their status in life. I mean, I think that's why you have all these other, you know, issues coming into place with voting, with them rolling back, you know, the suburban residential, you know, regulations as far as improving, you know, minorities being able to live and get houses in suburbs. They're doing so much stuff because I think the big picture is they feel like they're losing their power, they're losing their privilege. There's more Black and brown people, you know, out here in the United States. They're going to become the minority at some point in time, and they're feeling that pressure. But my thing is, I've never really thought, and I tell this to, you know, my Caucasian friends, I say all the time, like, as a Black woman, I'm never waking up every day like, oh wow, I can't wait to go take over some white person's job or some white person's house or live that life. I just want to be left alone. I want to be left alone. I want my people to be left alone. Yeah. And as a woman, and that's a whole nother story, but I want to be left alone as a woman. I mean, I think that's all Black people want, Black and brown people in general, is we want to be able to live our life in peace. We want to be able to live, with justice and equality like everyone else. We want to be treated the same. We don't want to be questioned about why we work somewhere or why we live somewhere or why we're shopping in a certain neighborhood. I mean, I've been the only Black person in R&D just about every place I've been, and I get looked at like, what are you doing here? Yes. I shouldn't have to come in and feel uncomfortable anywhere I'm at just because I'm a Black woman or just because you're a Black man or brown, Hispanic or Asian. You should be able to go wherever you want. Yeah. Work, live, play, take your dog to the park, go bird watching without people questioning why you're there. Yeah. You have the right to live, work, play wherever, just like anyone else. And I think that's the whole question is, why do they feel the need to infringe upon our freedoms when we're not bothering them? We're not studying them. We don't care what they're doing. Why do you care what we're doing? That's always my question. Why are you so concerned? And it has to be because they feel like they're losing something themselves. And they want to keep you at a certain level. They don't want you here with them. They feel like you don't have the right to be here with them. I tell people this all the time on Facebook when I'm seeing people post about Black Lives Matter. Why do you need to write that there on the street? Oh, you guys need to go get a job. Oh, you need to burn down the welfare center. I see all these crazy posts on Facebook just because someone wants to paint a mural. And I tell these people it's plain bigotry, hatred, and you just want us to shut up and be satisfied with our status in life. Don't
shut up and dribble. Shut up and do whatever job you have.
Shut up and do. Be glad you're here. Be glad you're able to do it.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, Michelle, but it's at every level.
It's at every level.
It's at the $9.50 an hour subway worker, and it's at the $40 million a year starting small forward for the Los Angeles Lakers. He got told shut up and dribble. So I think a lot of it goes to kind of people having roles for different people that are lanes that they fit in. If they end up in a lane outside of a lane that they are assumed to fit in, they get questioned. I'll give an example kind of in my work. This is not my current job, but a job I had another before this one. There was a young white woman who worked in her role in the company was under my role. Not that it made me any better or anything, but it was just at different levels. And whenever we would have staff meetings, we would get into these meetings, and she would come up to me and say, "Hey, Kevin, what are you working on?" Now, kind of on the surface, there's nothing wrong. I mean, you ask your people what they're working on. But the way I took it, and maybe I took it wrong, and maybe this isn't. But I took it as, let me check on you to make sure you're working.
Right.
And now, granted, maybe I didn't stand up for myself like I should have, but I wanted to say I don't work for you.
And sometimes you need to tell people that.
That is the definition.
My boss is that lady over there. Right.
That's what a microaggression is. Where you don't know if it's big enough for me to respond to it. Right. Do I become an angry Black guy on this? Yeah. Or do I? That's what a microaggression is. Right. It's big enough to hurt you, but small enough that you make a big deal out of it.
Right. And I think that's what you're seeing with, the Karen situation is that these are also microaggressions, right? Like, what are you doing here? How dare you approach me about me not having my dog on a leash? Right. What are you doing in this gym? The man that questioned the young Black guys that were part of the startup company.
Where are you barbecuing in a park?
Yeah. You have so many instances of this because people think you're supposed to be at a certain level, or how dare you approach them about something because they are who they think they are. So you see this, like you said, Kevin, on all levels, where you could be, like at Subway, like you said, working. Like me in R&D, I get questioned constantly as the only Black person, second guest. Did I do something right? Am I sure? And I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this for like 11 years. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And but you get tired of it, and there's no need for it, because people should just be able to live their life. Somebody's doing something wrong, as the woman who didn't have her dog on the leash in the park. You should be able to say, hey, can you please put your dog on the leash, and not have it escalate to where someone's going to call the police on you, and literally say, this is an African American man attacking me.
And
you think they're privileged and your color as a weapon.
Yes, and that was
So I'm just saying, like, we really have to figure out what's going on in this country. I see so much hatred, so much privilege, and I see it from all sides. And I think the Karen part is just a small part of a lot of the craziness that's going on in this country.
Sure.
Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking pictures and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the Ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
Sure.
So that was actually kind of a good segue, and I wanted to ask, and I don't want to get political. I assume I know everyone's political leanings in this room, but I don't want to. I assume I do, but I don't want to speak for anyone. But do you think the current administration has kind of contributed to kind of the onslaught of Karening in our society?
Oh, absolutely. I think that because he's so brazen and wanton in how he acts, it has given people courage to say, if the president of the United States can do it, so can I. And he is fanning the flames. And he is, I think at times, he is hoping for an all-out race war. And it is unfortunate. It is scary. And, to add to all of that, we're in the middle of a pandemic, which, inversely affects people of color more. And I think they're like, great. And I think part of that's the reason why we've had the response that we had this across the board affected, everybody the same. I think the response would have been different had it affected Caucasian people at a higher rate. Response would have been different. But because it's, people of color that are affected higher, why should we care? It's y'all, it's not us. And that's why you have people being so defiant about masks, because they don't care about people of color. And I shouldn't say that broadly. There's a lot of people who do it. You have a lot of people who have skin in the game. I'm a healthcare, professional. I deal with all this. I hear my doctors talking about it. Whatever they tell me they need me to do to help them out, to be on the front line, risking their lives and their families' lives, sign me up. You need me to wear a mask 24 hours a day? I got you, boo. Don't worry about it. Whatever we need to do, and that's what we need to do. But because our leadership is so lacking, we should have been out of this. Had we locked down this country in January, we would have been on the other side of this pandemic. There's no question about that. But because we've been loosey-goosey, hey, you can do what you want. You don't want to lock down your state? Don't worry about it. Well, we're never going to get through this at this rate.
We still live in such a racist, segregated society.
Absolutely.
And white people are totally in denial about it. Not all of us, but a lot of us are, and even saying us makes me kind of sick to say out loud. But, what I mean is, I'm 50, so I remember during the 90s, we kind of thought we were going towards a post-racial society, and we thought that was good at the time, a little bit, in terms of, but then, then we got into the 21st century, and we realized that we're not post-racial, we don't even really want, we want to elevate races. We don't want to make everybody the same race, and we, white people just won't look at the legacy, won't look at history, won't look at, you can tell white people, you can look at, show statistics and show, put them in their face, like about the pandemic, like about how it's affecting Black and brown people way more. And we have all kinds of excuses that we throw in the air. They're like juggling balls, and we hope they don't drop, to say, to just describe what's going on without racism, because nobody wants to be racist. Everyone thinks everyone thinks we have, and what white people tell themselves, this is a land of opportunity and freedom, so all you got to do is work hard and blah, blah, blah. There must be some reason that you're not succeeding like white people. It's like so clueless and so insidious and so prevalent, and it's kind of, and then we get these crazy, ass Republicans, sorry for, who say, who just pretend it's not happening at all. There's no racism, we don't need to do anything about it, look at them, So, white people are just terribly clueless, and purposefully, right? It's not that hard to get smart,
I question that all the time. I do have white friends that are clueless, and we have conversations. But when you see instances like the bird watcher, where she clearly says, I'm going to tell them an African-American man is in the park.
Right, threatening me, right, correct.
Threatening me.
So why do we say that they're clueless? They're not clueless.
Some of them are.
She is, though.
Some are.
She is.
But I feel like, my feeling is that the majority are not, and they know exactly what they're doing in a lot of these instances. And they like to turn the cheek or ignore a lot of things that go on in the Black community. Our numbers in COVID are raising because of predisposed issues, and that's the easiest definition of that. I don't understand why it's so hard for our president, someone like that, who can't see it just like you can see it. So I don't know. I question, and that was actually going to be a question I had earlier, is why do we think that Karens are clueless? Why do we think that there are some Caucasian men that just don't get it? And then why are they clueless? Why is that? For the ones that do not know and do not understand, why is that? Is that generational? Is that how they're being raised? And this is why I talk about age, because I do think that does matter now, in the society that we're living in now. I think that, April, to your question, when you asked, why is this such a public matter? I don't know if you asked or Kevin asked. I think a lot of the younger generation, kids and social media, you pair those two together, they're voicing these concerns because they're seeing it and it doesn't make sense. Whereas you have generation, what came before Generation X?
The boomers.
Like the
Boomers.
The boomers, I feel like, are the individuals that are stuck in their ways. Their Black dominance makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so now that you have baby boomers, a world where you have baby boomers mixed with Generation X, Generation XY, is that the next one?
I think it was generation.com, but I don't know if that name starts.
Gen X is the millennials, and then who's driving the bus right now is Gen Z.
Gen Z, yeah.
Because your millennials are your oldest millennials are 39.
Yeah.
Just understand that's a millennial. At 39, that's a millennial. So that's Gen Y. That's millennials. So who's driving this bus now? And because I think you're right, Tiffany. This is Gen Z.
Yeah.
This is that next generation who don't like being proclaimed a millennial, and who are quick to tell Gen Xers like myself that we screwed it up because and we have, and I have this. I have a 19-year-old daughter. I have a 20-year-old nephew, and they are quick to tell me, and they're right. We had Rodney King. and we had this big thing, and it was all this horrible stuff, and Rodney King happened, and then so, and my nephew asked me, he said, then what happened next? I said the NBA Finals was on. That's what happened next. We get sidetracked. If there's a reason why now it is there, the pandemic has actually exposed that. Many of you are media people. So in your 30-minute news broadcast, you get 8 minutes for commercials. You have 22 minutes. 6 minutes of that is weather. 6 minutes of that is sports.
Right.
So you got 10 minutes of news. Well, guess what? You don't have 6 minutes of sports. There's no sports. Guess what? The pandemic occurred March, April, May. You don't have any tornadoes. You don't have any severe storm systems. So your weather's only 3 minutes. So you got an extra 9 minutes every day of this in your face. We don't have to cut. We don't have to edit this. We can show you the full 8.5 minutes of shoving on George Floyd's neck because we have time to fill up. We there's nothing else to put on. And so the Karens, back to that, they're sitting there having their entire existence of what they've done in life questioned and put in front of them that they're wrong. And it's not put in front of them in a 3-minute blurb and then we move on to baseball or we move on to basketball, we move on to this. There's nothing else to move on to. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about COVID-19 and we're going to talk about what's going on with what's happening with civil rights and social justice and what's happening. And as a business, whether you're a news station, a news corp, or any screen that you have, you need content. The only content that's available is this. There is no other content. So this is being forced. So if there's to find some good in the pandemic, if we can find some, is that the nations had to look and see what's happening. And this Karen outburst is happening. I don't think it's mental health. I think it's difficult as any human. It's difficult if you've been told something for 30 years, something is this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now you're being told in no uncertain terms and no way to argue, that's just wrong. Everything your parents taught you was wrong. Everything you learned in high school was wrong. Everything you learned in watching media is wrong. Everything you think about this type of people, you're wrong. How many people have the ability to say, oh, maybe I'm wrong, I'll change? That's a violent thing when you start telling people 30 years of tape is wrong.
Yeah.
And
they're going to react to that. And that's what the Karen is. They're reacting to that.
And let me just add this. I don't mean to step on you,
I'm
Demetrius,
done. I'm getting off.
but I think that's actually a vital part of the definition of Karens is that Karens are never wrong. And kind of in the action, like, I'm sticking to my script no matter what. Like that bird watcher lady. Like
in the face of everything.
Instead of just saying, okay, I will leash my dog. It made more sense to her. I'm gonna lie to the police and say that this black man is threatening. Like that is part of it. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what is going on is that women aren't actually safe in public very much. You know, any woman, white, black, whatever, right? You know, like we're, you know, even in the daytime sometimes, you know, I mean, you know, I'm always watching my back, you know, whatever neighborhood I'm in. And it's because, you know, violence against women is part of what white supremacy has got going on, right? And so for white women, you know, like I was thinking, like, how can we be so clueless? Like, because you were saying, you know, Tiffany, like, are they clueless? You know, and it's kind of, I think it's sort of like this, like you don't want to step outside your box, right? And you're afraid, you know, you're not empowered, right? White women, you know, compared to white men are not empowered, right? So when you're afraid. And so you go out and do your stuff in the world.
That's fun.
And no, I just naturally haven't. But you're going out and you're doing stuff in your world, and then you see a black person doing something that you perceive as against the rules, you know? I don't know, I'm trying to put my head into this, is why, but as a white woman, like try and step into this. And women are, we're trained to, white women anyway, we're trained to call the cops. We're trained to find a man to come help us, right? So that's what our first inclination is. Like, let me, I can't deal with this. Let me call an authority, And that's what, it was kind of interesting when I was flying and I started videotaping people not wearing masks. They're like, flight attendant. It was women, like, where are you? Come save me, from being videotaped doing something illegal, So
what you're saying is like it's a response type of thing. Whereas in some cases for the women who don't know, because I think that's who you're referring to, just the women who are really clueless, they are Karens, but they don't know. But
yeah, and every time they're like, oh, but I'm not racist, and it's like they're really and we, it's important for white people to not acknowledge it, right? Racism, because then we're saying, that we walk around every day putting, in a racist environment and not do anything about it, so it's very important for white people to say, well, I'm not racist and I don't see racism, it's just like, we got to keep the whole, delusion going on, and I think some people, are aware. Some people are racist. Some women, Karens are racist, and then they walk, they're hardly even probably bothered by being called Karens, but I think that's part of the whole thing about it that's so disturbing is so many white women are still acting like, vicious, it's a vicious thing to do to call the cops on somebody, and they.
Hey, Michelle, go ahead, jump in.
I think it's also, we have to think about the dichotomy of where people live, work, and play. Most white people do not live in a very diverse neighborhood. They usually will only deal with Black and brown people or any people of other races, maybe at work, maybe when they went to college. Then they go back to their home where it's all white, right? So it's the same thing with policing. If you have police officers who go into a Black or brown neighborhood, they don't know the culture, they don't know how people behave. My husband always says, Black people, we're kind of animated. We got arms going, we get loud when we're excited about stuff, but we don't mean no harm by that. But if you don't understand the culture that you're working in, if you don't understand the culture of the people that you're around, whether you're out at the store or whether you're, at a hotel or a swimming pool, you might find that they're doing something that you think they shouldn't be doing when they're just being them. So I think a lot comes down to a lot of white people segregate themselves away from Black and brown people. So they get scared, they don't understand us, they don't understand our culture, they don't understand our way of speak, our way of dress, and they get intimidated by that or scared by that. They see us in the gym, they see us at the park. Oh my goodness, I'm a white woman or a white man and there's 3 Black dudes here at the gym. You shouldn't be here. Oh, I'm a white woman with my dog. There's a Black dude approaching me about not having my dog on the leash. How dare you? I feel frightened. Because they act like they're so liberal. And the lady that was in the park that called the police on that Black man, she was like an Obama supporter. She was, very liberal. But apparently she did not have a good, understanding of Black people. And if she did, she at that moment said,
but see, right. April, I think April's going to make, but go ahead and make your comment, April.
So I have a problem with this lady ever since this story came out, because it was days after George Floyd was killed. She called the police knowing they didn't know who she was. All they knew that there was a white lady in Central Park saying she was being threatened by a Black man. She knew the implications of making that call. She knew that there was a high probability that the police could have showed up in that park and killed that man. And if it wasn't for the video that he made, they would have sided with her, saying that he had been threatened. His life, his livelihood, everything would have been at risk, because why? White women tears, right? We're going to go back to that. So his whole world could have been imploded. But because he had that recording, he could show how dramatic she was being when there was no tears, nothing was happening. He wasn't even in close proximity to her. And that
was, as a matter of fact, she came to him and he told her, Please back away from me. I don't want you near me.
And that is my problem, because that is what too many of our Black men encounter is, hey, I'm not trying to get close to you. I won't help you. I won't do anything because I'm in fear that if I do, you're going to come back and say I did something that I didn't, because, you know, we've got a whole history of what happens when supposedly you looked at a white woman, or they think you whistled at a white woman, or whatever it was that you supposedly did that you didn't. And so it is problematic all the way around. She knew exactly what she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think people hide under the guise of, I'm an ally to the Black people, when you're really not. You're just trying to infiltrate to see, how can I get closer to you? Because you know what? You keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, right?
And at the same time, I think they don't care. And this is my thing that I tell people all the time. They don't care. Like, I don't buy that. I'm ignorant to everything. I just don't know. There are a few that are, but at the same time, when you see people commenting on things, telling you that, you know, you don't need to paint a mural, or you need to go back to work.
What about Black on Black crime?
Yeah, we're gonna let you guys kill each other, so the cops should be able to kill you too. I mean, when you see the comments on social media, it lets you know that they truly don't care. Some people do. Kevin, you know, we work with a great group of diverse people at Media Bridges. They're out there on the front lines. Jeremy's out there on the front line in Portland. You know, I've been out there. Other folks we know, they fighting and championing the cause, and they're Caucasian, people of different colors. I know they got our back. Other people, it's like they don't care. It's not, things are not happening to them. It's not happening in their community. They're not the ones who would, if the police rolled up on you and someone called the police. I've seen the police get called to help Black people and they arrested them. And the news lady was trying to tell them, no, the people that robbed the store went that way. And they're arresting the people that own the store in Oakland.
Yep.
So I'm just saying, like, you have to realize this. You have to if you don't understand what's going on, either you have some mental issues you need to work through, get some help, or you are basically, it's conscientious stupidity where you choose.
Willful
blindness.
Yeah.
To not understand this, to not, you know, take action against it, to not try to be a better person, because bias, racist, bigotry, these are learned behaviors. You can't just tell people all of a sudden, hey, you know what, Black Lives Matter, and you better believe it too. And they're okay with that. You just can't. It's very hard to change hearts and minds of people. This takes time. This country has built itself on divisiveness of Black and brown people being put at a certain level. So you're going to tell me all of a sudden in the year 2020, everybody's going to be like, okay, you know what, Black lives do matter. You guys are right. You do get treated unfairly and unequally. You are disproportionately killed or beat, arrested by the police, even though you're only 13% of this country. You know, it's going to take a long time. We didn't get here overnight. So it's going to take a very long time for people to come to accept that things are changing. You know, we're not going nowhere. I tell people all the time, like, oh, let's move to Ghana. I'm not going nowhere. My people are here.
Built this.
They're buried here. My family's here. We got equity. I'm going nowhere. I shouldn't have to go nowhere. This is just as much my country as anyone else's. I'm going nowhere. You're going to have to learn to live with us.